Kyle to the big one on Sunday. Thankfully, there's no other racing this weekend.
One's so tough.
We can just focus on the Cup Series, and boy, oh boy, am I ever confused on what to do here. I don't know what order I'm going to do this in as we speak. But I think we just take a look at all four guys before we give our predictions, because I've just got a couple of things I want to
let's talk about all four, and then we'll rank them.
Exactly. So I think we start off with the guy that's had the most wins. We'll go kind of in that, kind of order. So we'll start off with Denny Hamlin here. He's got 35 starts this season, 7 wins, 1 coming in the playoffs at Talladega, with the infamous Talladega one that we definitely have some scrutiny over the decision on that one. But
I got the fantasy win. That's all I care about.
We digress. 17 top 5s, 20 top 10s, 1,083 laps led. He's had a rough playoffs, only 2 top 10s in these playoffs so far, which is pretty remarkable. So he's just, I kind of predicted that coming into the playoffs that Hamlin wouldn't be that great. But I didn't think he'd be as bad as he has been. So that's maybe a little bit nerving, especially this past weekend at Martinsville. After he fell back through the pack, he never really regained that after that penalty or not the penalty, but having to come back down for the loose lug nuts. So he's also struggled the most amongst the championship 4 on the 750 low downforce package this season, but he's also using a brand new car this weekend as well. So maybe they've learned some things throughout this package this season, and they feel like they've got a good piece behind them. But coming into a track and having no practice with a brand new car is a bit of a risky move by the 11 team. We'll see if it pays off for him. So Denny Hamlin, Kyle, he was definitely a championship favorite when the playoffs started. You could look at Kevin Harvick or himself, but as the last 10 weeks have progressed, or the last 9 weeks, have progressed, maybe that favoritism towards Hamlin winning the championship has kind of teetered off a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely say it has, and it's because of the lack of performance in these playoffs. Only winning the race at the Superspeedway is not indicative of success in the championship race by any means. So, I'm definitely concerned about Denny Hamlin going into this race. That being said, last year is an interesting marker for me because he had the pressure going into that Phoenix race he needed essentially to win the race, to make it through to the championship race. And he did exactly that. Now, at the championship race, they had some issues, of course, which have been well documented, that cost themselves from the chance at winning the championship. But at Phoenix, in that pressure situation, they got through last year. It's going to be interesting to see if they can do that again this year round, just with the title on the line rather than a shot at the title on the line. But yeah, if you're looking at recent numbers as well, Denny Hamlin's probably got the best as you look across these championship 4 drivers. Earlier this year, a bit weaker, 20th place finish, but had some issues at Phoenix. But then last year, of course, the win in the playoff race, 5th earlier in the year. So Denny Hamlin, although they may not have the same momentum going into the championship race as one of the favorites may have, I think the performance at Phoenix still should propel them up the lineup.
I mean, I follow a similar line of thinking there in terms of what my thoughts are going towards Hamlin this weekend. It's so tough to kind of bet against a guy that's been so dominant this season on multiple occasions, but at the same time,
I did that last week for Kevin Harvick and it didn't pay off. So
it's just, I feel like in some respects, people are going to underlook Hamlin's performance during the playoffs and then kind of write him off a little bit going into this weekend. But when I look at like the season as a whole, it's so difficult to bet against the 11 car and what they've done. And, he's definitely had experience in the championship race. This is his 3rd championship finale, a championship 4 appearance. So he's been here before and he has failed to do so in the past couple of times that he's attempted this, and will he go down as one of the greatest drivers of all time to never win a championship? He can change that on Sunday afternoon. So we'll see what Hamlin does. And I think we move on here to, I guess last week's winner. We'll go on to Chase Elliott for this next one here. 35 starts this season, 4 wins. I couldn't believe it when I read that, but 2 road course with the Daytona road course, along with the Roval, and then obviously this past weekend at Martinsville. And then his other one was, oh shoot, what am I forgetting here?
Where was it? Oh my goodness, where was it?
What the heck?
Well, this is a tough look. This is a tough look.
This is rough.
He didn't. Where did Chase Elliott first win the season? Oh, Charlotte, the second.
Oh yeah,
race.
the second Charlotte race. No one remembers that race. After
it was on a Wednesday or something. Right?
Yeah, it was the weekday race after the Coke 600. They came back
when they should have won both.
After he blew the 600.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's his 4 wins this season. So 1.5 miles, 2 road courses, and then a short track win this season for Chase Elliott. He's got 14 top 5s, 21 top 10s. 1,094 laps led, so that's a very impressive total there. He's actually ahead of Denny Hamlin in terms of laps led this season, if you can believe it. And this is his first championship 4 appearance. Potentially was the fastest car in the spring here. He didn't get the result he ultimately wanted because of the flat tire, like I mentioned earlier in the show, but he had a really fast car from the get-go in the spring. So Chase Elliott could be someone to watch out for this weekend. Who knows how much time they put into this Phoenix car for this upcoming weekend, but if they have spent some time on it, momentum is definitely on the 19 car side, Kyle.
The momentum is the big thing here. And Chase Elliott's been good in the past at Phoenix as well. The numbers might be a little bit deceiving in averages just because there has been a couple really poor finishes in there because of wrecks and whatnot. You look at last year's playoff race as the big one there, finishing 39th. That really brings down that average. But earlier this year, had speed better than 7th place. You look in the past, and the 2 big ones that stand out is the playoff race in 2017, where he finished 2nd, and then the spring race the following year in 2018 when he finished 3rd. This is a guy that, when he's on at Phoenix, is one of the favorites to win the race, and you would have to imagine that he'll be up there in that conversation this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It's he's going to be one to watch. His first championship 4 appearance, and what a story it would be for a Hendrick Motorsports teammate to win the championship in Jimmy Johnson's final race. So that would be a pretty cool thing to see as well. So we move on here to the 3rd guy in the championship 4, and that is Brad Keselowski. One of the most consistent drivers, I'd say, this season, week in and week out. He's got 35 starts, obviously, this season, 4 wins, 12 top 5s, 23 top 10s. 963 laps led, and he has run exceptional on the 750 horsepower package this season. He won Loudon, he won Bristol, and he won Richmond in a very similar fashion. So these tracks definitely kind of correlate to Phoenix in some respects here. And if Keselowski wins the championship, this is a fun little stat here. I have like this poster in my room. You can't see it at all, but I've got the champions of every single year kind of thing. Up to 2016 was the last one. It's like the Moog or whatever the chassis parts kind of sponsor is. And I looked at it the other day, and I didn't know the stat then, but they had Terry Labonte as one championship, and then it was 14 years, if I'm not mistaken, 12 years, since he next won the championship in the 5-car for Hendrick Motorsports. Keselowski, if he wins the championship, it will be the second longest gap in NASCAR history between championships with 8 seasons. So winning in 2012, if he wins this season, that would be the second longest gap in NASCAR history. 4 years behind Terry Labonte's record. So I looked at that poster and I was like, man, it was a long time between Terry Labonte's championships, and then that stat kind of came out a day or 2 later.
That's interesting.
So it's an interesting one. Saw it on NASCAR Reddit, so credit to them for that stat there.
NASCAR Reddit's amazing.
NASCAR Reddit is incredible. So Keselowski goes into this weekend as maybe the championship favorite based off of the body of work this season, and he's going out there to try and win a second championship in his career.
Yeah, and he might be the favorite going into the weekend because of the success on the 750 horsepower low downforce package. But if you look at some of the recent numbers at Phoenix, they aren't as glowing as some of the others. You look at an 11th place finish earlier this year, and then last year, 10th and 19th. You have to go back to the playoff race in 2018 for the last top 5 finish there when they finished second. So
who did he finish second to?
I would assume Kyle Busch.
He did.
Kyle Busch.
Sorry.
My guy. It's okay. You get one last race to do it. I'll give it to you. But no, Keselowski's an interesting one because of that discrepancy between the success this year with the package and these last couple of races with this track. And is that going to mean that maybe they underperform the expectations going into the weekend? Or does it mean that they buck the trend of recent Phoenix races because of the success with the package? We don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out this weekend. But given the success with the package this year, I feel like Keselowski's got to be, if not the favorite, probably number 2 on most people's list.
Yeah, I follow a similar line of thinking there as well. So
I mean, he is
definitely
the one
one to
guy
watch
in the championship 4 that we both share in our fantasy lineup. So that does make sense.
Yeah, we definitely like Brad Keselowski this weekend. So that leaves us with our final championship 4 contender, and that is one Joey Logano. He's got 35 starts this season, 3 wins, 2 of them coming before the pandemic break, Phoenix being the last race before the pandemic hit, the pandemic break hit, and then he didn't win again until the round of 8 opener at Kansas. So I think that played a part of my decision as well with the fantasy as well. He won only 3 races this season and has won once since the pandemic break, albeit he's got a great time period here to prep that car. But I don't know if I've seen enough from Logano this season to maybe put him over the edge, and that's probably why I didn't put him in my fantasy lineup. I imagine it's something a little bit similar for yourself. So he's got 11 top 5s this season, 20 top 10s, 814 laps led, so the least of the championship 4 contenders on that stat line. And but he still has had the most prep time, like I've talked about. He's got a decent average finish on the 750 horsepower package this season. And also a little bit of an interesting stat here for Joey Logano in 2 things here. If Joey Logano wins the championship, it will be the first time since 1957 that Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR have had the same 3 championships crowned in 2 separate seasons. We're anticipating Lewis Hamilton to win the championship on the Formula One side of things.
Wow.
Back in 2018, obviously.
Look at you breaking out the vault.
NASCAR Reddit, man. I'm telling you.
But that's a good one.
So that would be a very interesting one. And we all remember the 2018 championship with the big 3 and me. And that was Don't remind me. He was in there for myself too. I was disappointed just as much as you were.
Yeah, but Truex
we won't talk about that. All right. So that is just a forgotten championship in my opinion. So no one counts that one. So Logano's still looking for his first champ. No, I'm just kidding. So it's an incredible stat there in terms of having that would be the same thing in 2 separate seasons since 1957. That hasn't occurred. And then I can't believe that that's a thing. Like, that's a crazy stat line in itself. And then also since 2016, the winner of the first race in the round of 8 in even number years has gone on to win the championship with Jimmy Johnson in 2016, Logano in 2018. Can he replicate that in 2020? Harvick won the round of 8 finale in 2014 when this playoff format was introduced at Phoenix in that walk-off win before he won the championship there at Homestead, Miami in 2014. So it follows that trend potentially here if Logano can go here and win the even number of years. But the championship in terms of the 1957 Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR, all the 3 motorsports that we usually talk about on the show kind of culminate into this stat line here. So Logano's got maybe some stats on his side in terms of history here, but he's also the spring race winner of the Phoenix race here. We can't forget that. So even though he has won 3 races this season, one of them comes at the track that the championship race is being held. So it's credible to think that Joey Logano has a shot at this championship and Kevin Harvick doesn't when you look at that one spot that it came down to at Kansas and not being able to pass the 22 car. That was Harvick. So what are you thinking here with Joey Logano here for championship weekend, Kyle?
Yeah, he's maybe the biggest wild card for me, just because, as you mentioned there, post-pandemic, they were not the same team. 2 early season wins, but that win at Phoenix is very interesting. And they just weren't that same race-winning team after they came back from the COVID break. That being said, they have had the longest time to work on the car, knowing that they'll be in the championship race. They won earlier this year, so that's a very, very interesting combination going into this race. They're also the only team to have a teammate in the championship for there with Brad Keselowski, so interesting to see how that will play into things as well. But yeah, Penske has been strong on the 750 package, Keselowski more so than Logano, but Logano has the win at Phoenix, whereas Keselowski has some worse overall numbers at Phoenix. So it's a very interesting group of 4 drivers we have going into this championship race. And really, you could say any of these guys wins the championship, and I will go, yep. Like all of these guys have such close odds going into this race. It really is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I wonder what the odds are for this weekend and
Yeah,
how they're breaking it down.
I'll pull up Betway real quick and see what they've.
I imagine Hamlin will probably be the lowest in terms of favorite just because of the season.
You think
but
so?
I believe Hamlin's going to be, or like the best odds, in my opinion. Is going to have.
Here.
But there's definitely a lot to be.
Cup Series championship. So this is, it's basically pick 'em across all of them. Let me just set it to the correct. Actually, I'll just leave it as is. So right now, Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin are tied as championship favorites. You bet $1, you win 3.4 for both Elliott and Hamlin. And then Keselowski and Logano have the same odds as well. You bet $1 and you win 3.75. So it's all super, super close. It's basically pick 'em across all of it, which is pretty remarkable, I got to say, how close the odds are there.
It just kind of even emphasizes that fact even more, that there's no real favorite going into this weekend. If Kevin Harvick's a part of this championship four, you probably see him with the best odds to win it. But right now, this is anybody's championship to win. It's just who wants to go out there and take it. So with looking at those four guys, Kyle, I think we kind of give our predictions now.
Yes.
This is it. The final predictions of the season. We'll give our winner picks. First off, do you think the champion will win the race? Do you think that is going to happen this weekend, or can someone spoil that trend for the first time since 2014?
I definitely think that of the recent races, I think that of the recent championship races, this is probably the best odds of somebody winning it that isn't in the championship four. But that being said, I do think that somebody in the championship four will win this race.
I agree. I have the championship four. So I think we're getting a 40-point winner here. Whoever that is, we'll see on Sunday. So I think we go into it. The bottom guy in our championship four, who do we have finishing fourth in Phoenix amongst the four drivers going for the championship? I think I have mine kind of locked in right now. But
okay, you go ahead then.
Okay. It's going to come as a shock as my fourth guy. The guy who's won the most races amongst anybody in the championship four. I'm going on a bit of an oddball here, a bit of a risky one. I think Denny Hamlin's going to finish fourth amongst the four guys racing for the championship. I don't know what it is. I could be entirely wrong, and he could finish first here, man. Like I just think when I look at the body of work on this kind of package this season and the trend of the season, I don't like the way it's going. And he said it in his post-race interviews that he wishes he was going head-to-head with Harvick. Well, he can't look at Harvick anymore. He's got three other guys he has to battle up against, and he can't worry about what Kevin Harvick does on Sunday. So I'm going with Denny Hamlin, probably your pick to win the championship when you started the playoffs here. I obviously had Harvick to win the championship, but I have Denny Hamlin finishing fourth.
Wow.
So, yeah, bit of a big one there.
Well, that just goes to show how crazy that this championship four is and how close it is. Because one of the guys that I had as a championship winner going into the playoffs, you have as the fourth best odds of winning the championship, or as your guy that you think will finish last. And it's crazy here. I do not have Hamlin as my number four guy. Who I do have as my number four guy is one Chase Elliott. And it kind of pains me to say so, because I do think that this team will show a lot of speed at Phoenix, but just given it's his first championship four appearance, there's a lot of pressure there. It's the first championship four appearance for Hendrick Motorsports as well since 2016. So this isn't even a team that's been used to being in the championship four. And given that this team, even when they've been really good, have had a lot of errors in the races that they've even been good at. You look at just this past week where they had a slow pit stop, cost them a few positions, and then almost had a penalty that put them back into the 20s. Obviously, we talked about that quite a bit earlier this week. You can check out that clip or the full show on YouTube. It's interesting to me because I feel like maybe the magic is there in Jimmy Johnson's final race with the neon number as well, that maybe Chase Elliott goes out, wins that championship for Hendrick Motorsports, and it's kind of like the passing of the torch moment. I don't know, but I just feel like, especially with Penske being so good, I just can't bet against Denny Hamlin as well as being the fourth guy for me personally. So Chase Elliott's my number 4 guy, even though I could very easily see him go out and win that race.
Yeah, I think it's all up for grabs, man. Like,
like this is so close.
I would not be surprised if it's a 4-way battle for the 4-wide battle at the finish line. Like, I think it's that even. So
just wait until there's a late race restart and they get the dog leg.
Just give me Logano wrecking another Gibbs car probably in the last little bit for a restart for a championship.
Or Kyle Busch wrecks Joey Logano. I don't know, maybe a little bit of retribution.
Come on, let's go.
Okay.
But speaking of Joey Logano, I have him as my 3rd guy in the championship this season. So that's the reason I didn't go with him in my fantasy lineup. When I look at this, I think he's just not going to be right there with those guys. I mean, going with the most prep time is a big advantage for these guys. It's very difficult to try and bet against the 22 car this weekend. But I'm going to go with my guns here a little bit and say that Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, 2 guys that you could probably have as your number 1 and number 2 guys, I'm going to have Logano finishing 3rd. So the stats don't really line up with what I'm saying, basically, with my opinion. But with 2020, I don't want the stats to really prove what I want to happen. So
that's fair.
I'm going to go with Logano here. Despite him winning the spring race, when I look at what Truex had to do this past weekend as well at Martinsville, and it's just so difficult to do it in the clutch moments. And it wasn't Truex's fault that he lost that race on Sunday. He could easily have been in Chase Elliott's position here this weekend, but I just think that it's just too much to ask for Logano. I don't think he's going to win 2 championships in 3 seasons. I think that would be nuts, especially this season. He's the most undeserving of the 4, in my opinion. So I think Logano's going to finish 3rd in the championship for the season.
I also have Logano as my number 3 guy, which makes sense because we both don't have him in our fantasy lineups, which means that we both got to have him 3 or 4 at the very least. Otherwise, we're insane. So
we're just stupid.
Yeah, in that case. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. It is difficult going and betting against the guy that won this race at this track earlier this season and has the most prep time. But that being said, I just feel like Keselowski's just been stronger with this package. And even though Logano won earlier this year, I think it's going to be a lot closer between all 4 of these guys really going into this championship race. And just given the lack of consistent top 5 speed or top 3 speed from Logano since the return, of course, just has the 1 win since then. So I'm just going to say that Logano is my number 3 guy. And again, of course, very easily could go out and win the race. Probably will because we both don't have him in our fantasy lineup. But I have him just slightly ahead of Elliott just because of that experience factor and with the win earlier this season at Phoenix. But I feel like Keselowski and, for me, Hamlin just have the edge over them as well.
Yeah, so I've got Elliott and Keselowski as my top 2, and you have Denny Hamlin and Keselowski as your top 2. So oh boy, this is it. The champion prediction. Whoever I say is the champion, I predict to win the race as well as what that goes along with. So here we go. My champion for 2020 is, drum roll please, it is Brad Keselowski.
Okay.
He is my champion for 2020. God, that was difficult to say and predict here, man. I can't believe I just said those words. But I'm going with Brad Keselowski. I don't know. I just got this feeling about the 2 car this weekend. It's just been nagging me for a couple of days here. It just feels like it's leading up to this moment. Brad feels confident. And he says that this is probably the most confident he's felt going into a championship race over the past couple of days doing the media stuff. So when I listen to Brad hear that, I know he knows what he's thinking and he knows what he's doing. And it's quite the risk to say that Jeremy Bolins, the guy that was probably maybe the 3rd of the trio over there for the crew chiefing at Penske, could be in a position here to win a championship with Brad Keselowski and beat his former crew chief over there in Paul Wolfe against Joey Logano. What a story that would be. I hope they kind of mention that in the madness that probably will be Sunday. But yeah, I've got Chase Elliott finishing 2nd and Brad Keselowski is my champion. It's too much to go against his speed on the 750 horsepower package this season. And even when he had a damaged car here in the spring, He was ahead of Logano for a lot in that final stint there before pitting and just being off sequence on tires. So if they play the strategy right, I think they've been super consistent. And when I look at the speed that they had at Martinsville here at late, they grinded it out, going from the back with the speeding penalty all the way up to fourth. I like the two car a lot this weekend. And I don't know. It's just a weird feeling, man. I can't believe I just said Brad Keselowski's my pick for the championship, but he is. So who are you thinking is your 2020 NASCAR Cup Series champion?
I love that pick, but he is not my 2020 champion. I'm going to say Denny Hamlin goes out and gets it done. I think that people are maybe sleeping on Denny Hamlin just a little bit because of the recent results. But if you're a team that feels confident about going out and making it into the race, and granted that Martinsville results definitely leaves me with some concern, but you also don't want to play all your cards early on as well. And we know that with, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Hamlin going into this race with a new car as well. I really like Hamlin's recent results at Phoenix, and I really, really like that pressure-filled victory at Phoenix last year in the playoffs. So looking at this race, if we look back a few weeks ago, I said that Chase Elliott would make it through to the championship.
You got 3 out of the 4 for that prediction. You got 3 out of the 4 for that.
I didn't do too bad. I didn't do too bad. But people said going into the round of 8 there, that maybe Chase Elliott didn't have that clutch factor. And I said, you know what? This is the year that I think he goes out and gets it done. And sure enough, he had that clutch factor at Martinsville and he got the win. People say the exact same kind of stuff about Denny Hamlin where, once he gets to the championship race, he chokes. And yes, he's done that in the past. But you know what? It worked out. The prediction with Chase Elliott is 2020. Weird stuff happens. Maybe this is the year that Denny Hamlin doesn't choke in the championship race. I like Phoenix as the championship race for Denny Hamlin here. As I said earlier, I like the recent results here. The new car is definitely an interesting strategy. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But you know what? There's just something about that 11 team this year. I think that they finally go out and get it done.
That's a great pick. He's my 4th guy, but he's a great pick. I mean, you can go any way, man. I'm not surprised that you went that way. You stuck with your guns here.
To that initial point, championship prediction. I almost put Chase Elliott as my championship winner, and he's my number 4 guy. I really thought about going with that maybe Hendrick Motorsports, Jimmy Johnson factor, and maybe, but I didn't want to buy into the storyline too much. So I'm going with Denny Hamlin still in this one.
You've almost convinced me that I should pick Hamlin as my champion. Like it's just basically that easy to do that.
It's so close.
Because it's so difficult to look at previous playoffs because there's been so many different variables and so many different kind of ways people have won the championship. Like there's been people that have won the way Hamlin's done it where they kind of come in slow and then they just kind of win the one-off race. I think back to last season with Kyle Busch. Didn't have the greatest kind of finish to the season there, but on the one-off race that they needed it the most, he goes out there and wins it. So there's definitely that magic over there at JGR. Can they replicate that again? And then, Chase Elliott, the underdog, the guy that's coming in here with no championships, along with Hamlin, but this is his first championship for appearance. You look at someone like, you think back to 2014, Kevin Harvick kind of thing, maybe in that regard, in that clutch kind of moment where they won it in the penultimate race and then they go on and win the championship the next weekend. Brad Keselowski is an interesting one where I don't know if there's really a direct correlation to Keselowski. I think maybe back to Jimmy Johnson in 2016 a little bit, just kind of being under the radar a little bit and just sneaking their way in there. And then showing up when they needed it the most, when other people maybe have issues and they capitalize on that. I could see Brad Keselowski doing that on Sunday. And then Joey Logano. It's hard to try not to think about the 2018 championship for himself as a direct correlation to this one, as he was kind of struggling through the season and then he found his form in the playoffs. I think the 22 team has done that to an extent. So I think the Logano could kind of go back to 2018 as a reference if he wanted to look at himself. So there's a lot of different storylines here, a lot of different ways to win a championship. And either way, you could have any of these 4 winning the championship. There's no clear favorite, as the betting odds have kind of shown. So it's up to the drivers at this point. It's completely in their hands. Anybody, there could be 12 different championships this weekend, and it basically comes down to that. So That's it. I've got Brad Keselowski as my race winner at Phoenix, and I have him as my champion. I'm guessing you have Denny Hamlin as your race winner, obviously. So Hamlin is going to be the race winner at Phoenix for Kyle and the champion. So we could be entirely wrong. We were entirely wrong last season, so don't trust us on this
across the board. So hopefully at least one of us gets one champion pick right.
That would be great. You know, that would just make us look like this entire season of body of work was not for nothing. But we could just be totally wrong and miss it this season as well. I wouldn't be surprised. So